Progressives continue to bash Israel despite an explosion of anti-Semitic attacks in America. Jewish people targeted from coast to coast after the recent fighting in the Middle East. Democrats like Bernie Sanders keep going after Israel.
The United States of America has got to be leading the world in bringing people together, not simply supplying weapons to kill children in Gaza. Our job is not simply to put more and more military support for Israel. It is to bring people together.
And after days of waiting, President Biden and Vice President Harris are finally getting around to condemning the anti-Semitic violence, both taking to Twitter to call it, quote, despicable. Juan, do you agree with Bernie Sanders that the Biden administration is supplying weapons to kill children in Gaza?
I don't think they're intending to cause violence against civilians, but I think that's the argument, Jesse. I mean, to my mind, we have to be very clear here and not confuse anti-Semitism with legitimate criticism or debate about Israeli policies. That's a separate issue. It's not anti-Semitic to say I differ with Israel's policies. You have debate among Jewish people, including Bernie Sanders, about what Israel is doing, how it conducts its policies. You have, AIPAC versus J Street in terms of the Jewish American community taking different positions. So there's nothing anti-Semitic about criticizing Israel. I think that the larger issue here is where do we go as an American people with regard to this violence that we've seen in the streets? It's reprehensible. It is to be condemned by every side. I don't care if it's anti-Semitic violence against Jewish people. I don't care if it's anti-Muslim violence. I don't care if it's anti-white, anti-black, or, those people who want to say, Chinese people brought COVID here and they're attacking the Asians in larger numbers. All of it tears at us as Americans, and I think we all need to stand together in opposition to that kind of behavior. I will say one last thing about Israel, though. I think there's a generational divide. You can start to see it now in the poll numbers about Israel that didn't exist previously. Everybody just, wanted to support Israel. They were so vulnerable. I think Israel and Prime Minister Netanyahu better be aware of the fact that there are more and more Americans who are critical of Israeli policy.
I haven't seen that, but your point about Israel being vulnerable, Greg, why do you think the Democrats always root for the so-called underdog, even when the underdog is just firing rockets into civilian territory?
They could just be stupid.
Yeah.
Or they could just be inconsistent. Why do you think there's more anti-Semitic attacks going on right now? There's a dramatic uptick. Why is there a rise in anti-Asian attacks, a dramatic rise? It's because all violent crime is up, right? All violent crime is up across the board. We talked about this months ago. It was laughed off. But you cannot tease out specific hate crime as something reprehensible without first condemning all of it as a group. So this is all due to a reduction of policing, the lack of accountability. When you see repeat felons that keep getting out, no bail, it sends a message that when you get arrested, you're going to be out on the street before the cop is done doing his paperwork. That is a fact. Some people are more important to your answer to your question, Jesse. Some people are more important to the media than others, which is why the media and the Democrats respond inconsistently to violence, even when it's well documented with words, pictures, and statistics. I don't know why it's so hard to maintain a consistent disavowal of all violence, from the riots and the lootings to the police to the January 6th to the gang crime to the attacks on Asians to the mentally ill attacking people on the street in New York City. If we were actually consistent about this, none of this stuff would ever happen. And what you would need to do is have a very strong support of law enforcement that would keep this from happening, because that's the incentive one needs.
Yeah, Katie, it goes without saying that politicians should condemn all violence. We have a big headline in here that Biden and Harris, condemn this attack on Jewish Americans. I mean, obviously, but we didn't always hear that last summer.
Yeah, but if you look at where this started, this implies that Israel is somehow purposely committing violence against Hamas in Gaza, when the reason why they had to fight back at all is because Hamas, which is an Iranian-backed terrorist organization, sent 4,000 rockets into Israeli civilian territory with the purpose of killing Jews. Now, in the process, they've killed Israeli Arabs, they've killed Palestinians, 400 of their own rockets misfired and killed Palestinians in Gaza, civilians. You had one of the leaders of Hamas on Sky News admitting that they deliberately fire rockets from civilian areas in Gaza at civilian targets in Israel, so that when Israel retaliates, they kill civilians, so then they're used for propaganda. And so when you see this overflow into the United States with pro-Palestinian Hamas supporting people attacking Jews in the streets, and they know, to Greg's point, that they're not going to get arrested, or if they do, they'll get out of jail really quickly and then come out and say, as a guy did yesterday, I would do it again after beating a Jewish man in the street. They know they can get away with it, just like Hamas knows they can get away with attacking Israel, because the international community is going to say, how dare you be violent against Hamas, when really they're just defending themselves. This is not an equal playing field when it comes to exchanging violence.
All right, pretend you're Jen Psaki, Dana. I'm Peter Doocy, and tomorrow I'm going to say, all right, Jen, you know, the $250 million that Biden released to the Palestinians that Trump had froze, they purchased weapons from the Iranians and then used those weapons on Israeli citizens. Does the Biden administration regret releasing that money?
So one thing I've never done is fallen for a hypothetical, Jesse, and that is what you were trying to get me to do.
You're good.
I'm still not going to do that. But I would note one thing. So the Squad and progressives, including Bernie Sanders, put out, again, it's tweets, right? But they're putting out tweets saying that they condemn anti-Semitic violence. But they add, all of them added, and the rise of Islamophobia.
Yes.
No.
So, I mean, and I think we just need to be very clear about this. Like, where is the data? Where is the increase? Like, where are you actually seeing it? And I agree that Islamophobia is bad, and attacks against people because they're Muslim is terrible. But do we actually have data that shows that that's happening? The last thing I'd point out is that it's very important that we all remember that the struggles we have in this country are not a mirror image of every place that we look. And the issues, and Katie knows them very well, when you can understand what's going on between the Israelis and the Palestinian Authority and all of that, it's much more nuanced and complicated. It's much more difficult. It's not just a black and white issue. And so we have to be more thoughtful about how we talk about it. And I would say that the president and vice president absolutely should do more than put out a tweet. Tweet matters for blue checkmark journalists. It doesn't matter to those who are actually on the streets fighting.
Nuance and thoughtfulness. Thank you, Dana Perino.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.